particular topic, that is Cartesian form of complex number. We are going to consider a quadratic equation in this case, and the equation is x squared plus 4x plus 9 is equal to 0. Most of the quadratic equations and maybe cubic equations have got real solutions, and we are going to see the solution of this particular quadratic equation. It comes a time when you're trying to solve this equation and then you try to use a normal calculator, not the programmable, you realize that it gives you a syntax error. So in this quadratic equation, it boils down to something that cannot be manageable, cannot be managed by a simple calculator. Now, what is that? Let me highlight. What is this? We have square root of negative 20. Now, whatever is inside this square root sign is known as a discriminant. And for the solution to be real, the discriminant must be greater than 0. If the discriminant is less than 0, in this case, the discriminant is negative 20, whatever is just inside the square root is the one we are referring to discriminant. Then, if it is less than 0, then the solutions to that problem or that quadratic equation are not real. What are they? Let us see to the next. Let us look at the next steps. Okay. Let us look at the next steps. So x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus square root of that. So let us see how it's solved. Now, the reason why I've decided to factor out negative 1, because you know that negative 1 times 20 is negative 20, is so that we get to know, let me use my pen here. I'm going to use which color? Let me use this. Oh no, let me use that. Now you look at that, square root of negative 1, and you factor out negative 20, it now becomes simpler in a manner that we can get the square root of 20. The square root of 20 is a real number. But what is square root of negative 1? The square root of negative 1, square root of negative 1 is equal to I or J. Now, what is I? I represents an imaginary number. Now, in pure mathematics, we normally use I. In engineering, because almost especially electrical and electronics engineering, there's calculation involving current, and because I is used to denote current, to avoid confusion, J is used. In this particular lecture, we are going to adopt J instead of I. Now, we can either use I or J to mean negative, square root of negative 1. Now let us look at what the solution gives, what the solution we have, the solution that we have. So x is equal to x is equal to negative 2 plus 2.236i. Why are we saying I? Because I represents square root of negative 1, or x is equal to negative 2 minus 2.236i. What is I then? Once again, it represents negative square root of negative 1. Okay, so let us now go to the next step. The real part is negative 2 and the imaginary part is 2.236.